Welcome back to another episode of Up in the Air. I'm Meredith Fish.
And I'm Hunter Williams. I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving holiday and avoided the bad weather if you were traveling through the Northeast.
Thankfully, I planned my travels on Tuesday, avoiding all of the mess. And later in the show, Paul Mikolajchuk from the Weather Risk Club will be here to detail the effects of the storm had on airline travel.
And Ryan Breton will also be around later in the show, giving us the 8 to 14-day climate outlook.
Justin McCoy, Brian Adams, and Kelly Bombs will be discussing how climate change will impact animals as well.
We have a jam-packed show, so let's get right to it. Here's Update in the Air. A recent analysis of renewable energy use in the United States by Oregon State University bodes well for the future of these alternative energy sources. According to the study, improving energy storage technologies and development of systems that provide a more steady flow of electricity could soon provide alternative energy sources that are not only more reliable, but also more cost competitive in comparison to traditional means of providing electricity. In the past, major concerns regarding the viability of renewable energy have centered around their constant variation. For example, the sun not shining at night and the wind not always blowing. The solution to this problem, according to those involved in the study, lies in creating connected systems involving multiple renewable technologies. Anna Kelly, an energy policy analyst at Oregon State, stressed that this is not just a fantasy, as such systems are already in use in Spain, Morocco, and China, and is even developing here in the U.S. For instance, electricity is currently being produced by wind farms in Wyoming, where it is then transmitted to Utah and is stored as compressed air in rock formations, and eventually used to power the city of Los Angeles. In the future, even more options are expected to become available with better and more cost-effective technologies, and many are hopeful that these hybrid systems can play a large role in producing energy for future generations.
According to an article published in Climate Change's Responses, extreme weather events such as El Niño can have long-lasting effects on health. The study showed that children born in the coastal regions of Peru during or after the 1997-98 El Niño have a lower height for age than others born before the event. This is known as stunting and is a measure of chronic malnutrition, which often persists into adulthood. El Niños have damaging effects in Peru due to the heavy rainfall and severe flooding. The 1997-98 El Niño is the most severe on record, which damaged bridges and roads to rural villages, leading to diets lacking in adequate nutrition. An increase in infection and severe food shortages were also persistent during and after the event, leaving a long-lasting mark in these child's lives.
According to the findings of the UK's first publicly funded studies on geoengineering, significant intervention in the Earth's climate will not provide a quick fix for observed global warming. This news comes after 3 UK universities announced the results of their studies on the topic on November 26th at the Royal Society in London. The results of the studies at the event emphasized that geoengineering would be more expensive than previously thought, that any positive results would be limited. However, studies also pointed out that at this time, anything regarding the topic of geoengineering should be taken with a grain of salt, including the findings at the event, as it is too soon to know what any of these technologies would look like in real-world implementation rather than just modeling. In the studies, numerous forms of geoengineering were researched, including dumping sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere to save Arctic sea ice and spraying sea salt particles into clouds to try to brighten them. As well as the feasibility studies, public perception on the topic of geoengineering was analyzed, and it was found that the common theme in the public was that geoengineering was, quote, messing with nature. Following the study, the future of geoengineering is still relatively shrouded. However, it is clear that geoengineering does not currently provide an instant solution to any of our climate problems.
Every year since the 1970s, the ozone hole forms over the Antarctic. In 2 or 3 weeks, the hole will close for the year. Recent studies have shown that regulations to decrease the ozone hole are working, as damage is being mitigated. This year's ozone hole first appeared in August, and from mid-August to the second week of September, rapidly grew. Although the 2014 ozone hole is one of the smallest ones since the late 1980s, it is still too early to make a definite call if these legislations are working.
Researchers at numerous French universities, in tandem with the scientists from Taiwan, have determined that surface processes, most notably erosion and sedimentation, are likely to favor the rupture of large, deep-ground earthquakes to the surface. Traditionally, however, it is believed that plate tectonics are the only persistent mechanism that influences fault activity. According to the researchers, erosion and sedimentation often trigger shallow earthquakes, classified as those less than 5 kilometers deep, which in turn result in large earthquakes from deeper under the ground. The results were determined based on erosion rates in Taiwan, which correlated with stresses in the faults located on the island. The results of this study shed light on the causes of earthquakes and hopefully lead to better preparation in the future.
The 2014 Atlantic hurricane season ended this past Sunday, producing only 8 named storms, including 6 hurricanes, of which only 2 were major. During this season, the only hurricane to make landfall was Hurricane Arthur, which landed on July 4th at the southern end of North Carolina's Barrier Islands. The steering currents in the Atlantic this season curved most storms in the northern direction, and the persistent ridge of high pressure over the eastern Pacific Ocean created wind shear, which reduced hurricane formations. A weak Western African monsoon also decreased the chances for African easterly waves to develop. Although the lull in hurricanes has persisted for a few years now, the National Weather Service is warning the public to not forget their hurricane preparedness to minimize potential damage. Up in the Air will be back in a moment with more. Welcome back.
Paul Mikolajczyk from the Weather Risk Management Club is now here to discuss Thanksgiving travel and how it is affected by the weather. Hi, Paul.
Thanks for having me.
How did weather affect travel this Thanksgiving?
The Wednesday before Thanksgiving is typically the busiest travel day of the year, and for the second year in a row, a nor'easter is set to hit the I-95 corridor. An estimated 41.3 million people traveled on roads this past Wednesday, which is a 4.3% increase from a year ago. Unfortunately for these travelers, on Wednesday morning, a strengthening storm system unleashed rain, ice, and snow throughout the Northeast. The travel weather was so bad that Governor Chris Christie issued a state of emergency for the state of New Jersey. East of I-95, the precipitation fell predominantly as rain, creating a nuisance for many of these road travelers. However, to the west, snow was in the forecast, with the storm dumping over 12 inches inland. As a result of the inclement weather, accidents and heavy traffic delayed many drivers' Thanksgiving plans.
Could you mention the storm's effect on air travel?
Well, Hunter, like last year, airports were overwhelmed with delays and cancellations this past Wednesday. Philadelphia had delays that reached up to 2 hours caused by 2 to 3 inches of rainfall. Delays in Newark were around 30 minutes and up to an hour at New York's LaGuardia and JFK's airports. In fact, a total of 1.3 million people traveled through New York's airports this past Wednesday. The delays in this major airport caused a rippling effect for other airports around the country.
How can travelers plan for the inclement weather?
With that said, it is important that flyers come prepared in case of delays or cancellations when there is inclement weather. If long delays are expected, they should be sure to pack an extra book or even book a hotel room for the night. If flyers wish to cancel a flight and look to reschedule with a different airline, they should first make sure that they are fully refunded and there are no expenses as a result of that cancellation.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks for having me. Brett and DJ will have your weather risk report for next week.
Welcome back to Up in the Air.
Now we will feature work from the Climate Dynamics class here at Penn State.
Justin McCoy, Brian Adams, and Kelly Balms will describe how climate change will impact animals.
This is our planet. Planet Earth. It contains an astonishing variety of landscapes and climates. Since life began, around 4,000 million years ago, it has gone through extraordinary changes in its climate and in the species that live on it.
We've all been made aware of the impacts of climate change on both ecosystem and human life in general. But sometimes particular species impacted by such changes in the interactions of the atmosphere and ocean are overlooked. Let's take a look at how climate change directly impacts marine life. One implication of climate change is increased sea surface temperature due to increased carbon dioxide concentration.
Even the slightest change in sea temperature can have a profound impact on aquatic life. Due to increased emissions of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the average global air temperature has increased by about 1 degree Fahrenheit. The average global sea temperature is increasing by approximately 0.13 degrees Fahrenheit per decade. Although this may seem like a trivial increase, marine life is much more sensitive to temperature change. According to Real Climate, the increase in the amount of energy in the oceans is equivalent to the energy generated by exploding a Hiroshima bomb every second in the ocean for 30 years. How does rising sea temperatures impact marine life? Due to rising sea surface temperatures, the aquatic food chain is being disrupted as a result of zooplankton outgrowing phytoplankton. Since there are fewer phytoplankton around to suck up carbon dioxide, there is less food for other grazers. This in turn leads to an overall decrease in aquatic ocean life.
As the climate continues to change, particularly with rising sea surface temperatures due to increased atmospheric CO2, marine life will continue to be negatively impacted. Because of these changes, it is important to not overlook the dire effects that climate change has on aquatic life. Even the slightest increase in sea surface temperature can have a profound impact on marine species. If sea surface temperatures continue to rise, the aquatic food chain will continue to be disrupted, further threatening the future of marine life.
For Up in the Air, I'm Brian Adams.
And I'm Justin McCoy.
And I'm Kelly Balms.
Thanks for that insight.
And now, Ryan Breton is standing by with this week's Climate Outlook.
Hi, Ryan.
Hi there, Hunter and Meredith. Nice to be with you. That's right, it was a very cold November in State College, even colder than last November, which was about 2.5 degrees below normal. This November, we were about 3.8 degrees below normal here in State College, and our records go all the way back to 1896. The average high was 44 degrees, the average low 30, making the mean temperature 37, and again, we should be around 40 or 41 for a mean temperature in November here in State College. In terms of the precipitation, not too abnormal, although we were a bit above normal in terms of the snowfall, 5.2 inches. And if you remember last November, we had about 4 inches of snow here in State College. So again, a bit colder and a bit snowier, although most of that came toward the very end of the month, as you know, here in State College. In terms of the snowfall, we are dealing with a snow cover around much of the nation, including here in central and eastern Pennsylvania, extending it to New England. About a quarter of the nation covered in snow this week. And of course, the major headline last week was that Thanksgiving week snowstorm, which caused hundreds of thousands of power outages through the Northeast due to the heavy, wet nature of the snow. But our weather pattern is changing, and it's not as favorable for winter weather as we head into next week. In fact, the jet stream lifting far to our north, allowing mild weather to move into Pennsylvania during the beginning and middle part of the next week. The major cold will be down here to our north as a bit of a trough will dig in during the second half of the week. But overall, the trend for next week is much milder than normal conditions, and that will certainly feel better compared to what we were dealing with during much of the month of November, which was very cold through much of the nation. So this is quite a change. Do you see any blue on this map? I certainly don't. In fact, we are expecting above normal conditions in terms of temperatures through much of the nation, normal through the southeast. It appears as though the core of the warmth really won't be here in central PA. Rather, it will be in central parts of the U.S., where much above normal temperatures are expected during this beginning and middle part of December. And in fact, those above normal conditions continue all the way out into California over the next week or two as well. Precipitation, there aren't as strong indications as there are with temperature, but with the jet stream to the north, any substantial precipitation could come through New England during this period, and also down here through South Texas, where we are indicating above normal precipitation. But a bit of a change for the west. California and the Pacific Northwest got a good deal of rain in the past couple of weeks, as we've been talking about here and Up in the Air. But going forward, below normal precipitation expected through much of the west as well. So that is the climate update for this week. We'll be sure to check back with you next week, and we can keep our fingers crossed that we'll continue the above normal temperature trend here in Pennsylvania. Back to you.
Thanks, Ryan. We look forward to the warmer weather ahead.
And thanks to all the students who participated on today's show.
Join us next week for our final episode of the semester. But for now, I'm Hunter Williams.
And I'm Meredith Fish. See you next week, Up in the Air.